I'm in my hometown, Kelowna, BC, and I'm on a farm called Old Meadows Organic Farm, which has actually been in the community for a long time. I knew the previous owner. And we're going to talk to a farmer, Jeff Ricketts, who's relatively new to farming. He's young, he's around my age, and he's a guy whose story I've heard many times before. Was working in finance, got sick of working in finance, wanted to do something meaningful, started farming. This is his farm. We're going to talk to Jeff, what he's doing here, what kind of stuff they're growing, and some of the cool techniques they're using to create beautiful organic products to sell to market. That's coming up next on The Urban Farmer. Hey Jeff.
Hey, how's it going?
Great. So tell us about what you guys grow at the farm. I've got more questions for you too, but tell us what you guys are doing here.
So I absolutely grow almost everything I can here at the farm. So the idea is that I have a market rate on site, and in order to have a market rate on site, I want to be able to have absolute control with my product and my quality.
Yep.
So the idea there is I'll grow everything I can here, despite fruit trees. Because I lease the land here, it's quite difficult to grow something like that that's a long time crop.
Yeah.
So I do have a few cherry trees on site, but the main focus is annual vegetables, annual fruits. Things from like what we grow our artichokes all the way to zucchinis. We got goji berries, cantaloupes, all sorts of tomatoes, strawberries, peas, potatoes.
Yeah.
Corn, broccoli, all the different colors: broccoli, purple, white, green, orange. A little bit of everything, so we create a little bit of excitement in the market as well too.
Yep.
Because one thing I find with the fresh market, you get people that they have a little bit of trouble feeding their kids sometimes, right?
Yeah.
You know, with boring old vegetables. So if you can kind of have, the colored carrots or the colored cauliflower, they can be a little bit more encouraged to try some of their meals and get a little bit creative with cooking and stuff.
Totally.
There, so.
You said you're on leased land, so tell us about that. I mean, I knew Jim Wood, who had this. So how did that whole thing come about where you took over the farm?
Well, basically is a very, very interesting story that it still amazes me to this day, actually, really. I was in finance for about 7 years, so I've done anything from trading the stock market to working in the banks to working in finance, mutual funds, investments, insurance, all that type of stuff. And it never really made me happy.
Yeah,
it's one of those things
surprise.
where it's just so corporate. You're told to sell all day long, and anything you do sell, you have no control over.
Yeah, right.
So you sell someone an investment, and
it's crap.
You don't know what it's going to do, and you got to take the blame for it in the end. And it just never sat well with me. So I was kind of looking for some alternatives, and I started doing a bit of research about aquaponics. And aquaponics kind of got me excited, and I started doing, like I said, do a bit of research. I looked around and realized the chefs didn't know what it was, the banks didn't know what it was. So when I was trying to think of my business model and doing a business plan for it, it just seemed like it was just something that I was going to fight, and it might not work, right?
Right.
So I needed something that was a little bit more old-fashioned, kind of grassroots, I guess. So I was just kind of looking around for a place to kind of work for a few days, and I saw that Jim Wood was actually advertising here for some help on the farm. I had no idea what I was going to be doing. I figured maybe, we'll build a few raised beds or something like that.
Yeah.
Never farmed myself before. I've only ever had houseplants, and I've only ever killed them all. I have like 2 that have survived, and they're aloe plants because they're pretty difficult to kill. But I came out here, worked for a few days, and it just won me over.
Yeah, you felt inspired.
Just so inspired. I sat down in the strawberry patch. It was covered in chickweed, so it looked like a sea of like seafoam green.
Yep.
Couldn't see any strawberries there, but you sat down. You kind of start into the row. It's daunting work at first, but all of a sudden you look back and you see this beautiful clean row of strawberries, and then all of a sudden you think, it's like, wow, geez, all this paperwork I've done all my life, it never really seems to mean much, but you look back at that, and I saw these beautiful strawberries sitting there.
The real sense of accomplishment. These
things are going to grow well, they're going to start feeding people, and I felt like I actually did something with that day.
Yep.
And I had a great sleep that night. And then I decided literally at that point, I want to be a farmer.
Wow.
So it won me over. I decided to kind of work/volunteer the rest of the summer just to make sure that, the fellow knew I was committed to farming.
Yeah.
To make sure I learned as much as I could. And then we made a deal that fall for me to take over for the next spring there. And,
so it was sort of a transition period where you did that, right?
Yes, there was a bit of the transition period. So I had a bit of a chance to kind of get a bit of hands-on experience, make sure it was something that I definitely wanted to do. And then that winter, I just went hardcore, Google, YouTube, watched everything I could.
That's how I learned.
And then a lot of it was just getting out there and just hands-on experience.
So okay, that's awesome. So how is it 3 years on this site now for you, like taking over after Jim?
This is going to be my fourth.
This is your fourth full season on this farm. Okay, that's awesome.
And so we started off with 4 acres originally, and then just this last year, the landowners allowed me to have another 3 acres just behind here as well. So now 7 acres total now.
Yeah, so. That's cool. So I want to ask a question. Right in the background here, we've got some carrots interplanted with peas. So tell us about what's happening here. This is really interesting to me. And you told me before, but I want everybody else to hear it because I think this is really brilliant.
So basically, I guess about 3 years ago now, I did a bit of research with companion planting, and somewhere I read that carrots will help enhance the flavor of peas.
Yeah.
And then I kind of thought for a second, I'm like, well, that makes a lot of sense. And I thought about the peas, and I said, well, the peas have a lot of issues in the summertime here in the Okanagan. Gets smoking hot, really hot and dry. And the main cause for peas to get stressed out is that the roots are very, very shallow and very sensitive to the heat change and the stresses from the weather, right? So when I decided to try growing carrots beside the peas, just based on that theory, I realized that the peas actually produce an amazing yield that year. So I kind of did a bit more playing with it than the last season there. And then so now we grow beets, carrots, and radishes all at the base of our peas. So yeah, they kind of help each other. The radishes, the beets, and the peas all get shaded from the extreme hot days, allows them to grow to a nice full size, get a little bit of nitrogen fed to them from the peas, and they're tender, juicy. And then the peas themselves will have, like I say, better yield from being shaded and protected. And then we're making more efficient efficient use of that space as well out in the field there too. So
because I have to say, as being somebody who's farmed in the Okanagan for my entire career, it's impressive to see peas in July like this, and especially this bountiful. Most people give up. Like you try to get them in early, and then you have them in June and maybe into July, but then they burn out. So something here is working, and this is a really cool idea. Thanks. So tell us about. So this is some pretty elaborate netting, and you guys have heard me talk about organic pest protection before, and it's often something like this. So we're looking at a big strawberry patch here. Tell us about this one, Jeff.
Well, this is the other big challenge being an organic farmer, or just being a farmer in general. You always got animals coming around the farm. So whether it's deer, whether it's birds, there's always something coming to snack here. So we've had a huge challenge with deer in the Okanagan here. A lot of the farmers in the area are asking for something to be done about it, but there's just not much you really can do in a humane way, I guess.
Yeah.
So one of our the crops here, strawberries, is one of our main crops, and we've always had the problem with the deer coming here, and every morning, or I guess in the early mornings, they'll come through and they'll graze all the flowers off the top of the strawberries. So we essentially get almost no yield off the berries, and any yield we do get gets pecked off by the birds. So this year we decided to do kind of something that would kill 2 birds with 1 stone there. We decided to put up this netting here. So it's essentially cherry netting. We put in the steel T-posts in the ground, a little bit of high tensile wire across. And it's not the prettiest thing this year, but this is just the trial version, and we'll make improvements on it year after year. But essentially we've kind of locked all the birds out, locked all the deer out, still allowed all the bugs and pollinators to get in, and now we have essentially proper protection for our strawberries, so we get full yields. And then combine that with the plastic culture, we're losing less strawberries due to sitting in moist, wet conditions. They're cleaner strawberries, so everything seems to be going very well there.
And what about like some of the fruit insect pests that we get here? Is that a problem with your strawberries at all?
There's always problems like that with strawberries. So because this is a new patch we planted this year, I haven't really had too many issues. The only thing I'm dealing with this year is quite a fungus problem. Because it's been lots of rain, then very hot, lots of rain, very hot. Powdery mildew has already become pretty predominant on a lot of the crops and like a lot of the pea bases there. A lot of the shrub lines across the property as well are susceptible to diseases, dandelions, all the grasses around here. So the disease is always around. So I have had to do a bit of treatment out there with potassium bicarbonate. I am using some natural bacteria like Bacillus subtilis as well, and experimenting with those as well. Just trying to keep the bacteria and fungus under control this year as well there too. But as far as pests, I haven't really had too many issues with pests and strawberries. So other than that, it's just been the deer and the birds there.
So I remember this farm like a long time ago, and everything was in rows. I see you've gone to over 30-inch bed now. So that must have increased your production then, eh?
Yeah, it's something that's been amazing for me. It allows us to plant more stuff in the bed, have less walking space. And because I bought the Rainflow Plastic Culture 2400 mulch layer, it allows us to have that nice perfect raised bed as well too. and it buries the drip line as well. So you have the drip line buried down to a nice depth instead of watering right at the surface.
Right. Yeah.
Which creates a lot of potential for root rot in certain crops and stuff.
Yeah.
Especially for strawberries. With the strawberries, we got it buried nice and deep, so it's watering nice and low, so we can have the water on constantly.
Right.
But they still have enough dry soil up top there.
And that reduces that fungus problem too.
Yeah, you betcha. Yeah. All these little things add up in the end there.
Yeah,
so.
totally.
And yeah, like growing everything in the plastic now, pretty much like all the crops like onions, corn, squash, potatoes, broccoli, cauliflower. A lot of the stuff I'm using in the plasticulture now. It's a little bit wasteful at this time, but I have a future goal.
Yeah.
The idea is it keeps the weeds down dramatically at this point. So if I do that for a few years, we should be able to get the weeds under control.
Out. Yeah.
And then in the future, once I'm able to kind of maybe get my own property or my own space, I want to start converting all these plastics into fuels.
Right.
So you end up heating them in a no oxygen environment, and then you can convert them, crack them into a fuel, right?
Yeah, very cool.
So then we can use them in the lawnmowers and stuff around the property and such.
Yeah, brilliant.
So eventually
there's a use for it. That's good. Okay, so we're on a really busy road here called Gordon Drive, and they've got this little front garden here. Tell us about what's happening up here, Jeff.
Well, this is our UPick garden.
What's a UPick? Okay.
Yeah, so this is our kind of main feature for the front of the farm here. Try and make it kind of as beautiful as I can. I'm mainly a vegetable farmer, so doing the vegetables and herbs is a little bit of a challenge for me, but I've gotten it down for the most part. But yeah, this is kind of our UPick urban flower experience. So on the one side here, we have a couple rows of herbs. So people can come in and pick whatever they need for dinner, whether it's just a fresh amount of basil, a little bit of thyme, sage, rosemary, anything like that. And then on the other side here, we have all flowers. So then, yeah, if anyone wants to kind of pick their own UPick bundle there, they can mix and match whatever they'd like. And just gives people that experience to kind of go out on a farm and get their hands on, as opposed to just coming into a market and having everything pre-picked, everything in plastic bags ready to go. So.
Exactly. So it's cool because it really just draws people in to your market here. And then so in here people can find anything that comes off the farm. Is that correct? Like anything that you've got ready. And so you guys harvesting every day then to get stuff in here, or how do you do it?
Yeah, you betcha. The idea with the market here is this is where we sell everything as fresh as possible. So because we're so diversified, everything's always coming ready almost every day. So we do all of our picking, whether it's late in the evening, early in the morning, or all through the day. There's always something that we can be harvesting that's not necessarily heat sensitive.
Yeah.
But yeah, we sell everything fresh here. We try and have everything stocked as much as possible. So the way I design the farm as well is everything's kind of planted so it comes ready roughly at the same time.
Yeah.
So we're not starting the season too early with just a few things, having all the extended costs of having the market open.
Right.
And not
you want
to
have that full when it comes
full
on.
Market.
So you're
And then you want people to be able to come here and not having to go somewhere else to a different store or somewhere else. They want to be able to come here and get everything they need.
Yeah.
And then be able to go home. And then they know the quality, they know where they get it from. Yeah, it's just a real nice experience for me and for the customers. So.
Awesome. Yeah. Great stuff. Well, that's Old Meadows Organic Farm. Farmer Jeff Rickards. Very cool story. I always love when people get into farming because they were sick of what they were doing, whether it be working an office job, being a lawyer, being a finance person. Not that there's anything wrong with those things, it's just I often hear this story more often than you would think, and it's inspiring. It's inspiring to see young people want to get back into growing food and producing something that has intrinsic value to their communities, and that's essentially and very critically what Jeff is doing here. It's inspiring. So hope this inspires some of you to get out there, get away from the job you hate, and start doing something meaningful. Start getting your hands in the soil, start connecting with your community and nature. So if you guys want to see more stuff like this, hit the subscribe button right now. Like and share these videos with your friends. Leave your comments below. And if you guys want to make a donation to the show, it's always welcome and much appreciated. It allows me to afford the time to come and do these kind of things, meet people like Jeff, and bring you more detailed content. You can do that at theurbanfarmer.co/support. All right, we'll see you next time.